Figure it out.
Hello, this is Adam Koralik from Figured Out Productions. The following video is a video of some kind, and I hope you enjoy it.
Hey guys, it's Adam here, and welcome to PlayLoad. This is, frankly, some of my video game pickups from August 2025. Very specifically because I took a trip down to Brazil, and I had actually intended to include all the Brazilian items in this video, and then I realized it would be like a 2-hour video because I got a lot of weird stuff down there. So what I've decided to do instead is separate that as its own special pickups video, kind of like when I would come back from Japan and there was just way too much stuff, so you get a special hard-off video and so on and so forth. That's the plan. So this is just everything else that wasn't from Brazil, though we have a little bit of Brazilian stuff just to kind of wet your whistle, per se. But yeah, so we'll just go ahead and get into it. Before we do that, though, if you guys could do me a favor, please like this video, comment down below, subscribe if you've never done that before, and check out all my social media stuff. I've got Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Discord, Patreon, Spreadshirt, my travel channel. I appreciate the support on those platforms. Thank you so much, and let's get into it. In case it isn't clear, Spreadshirt is also where you go to buy shirts. It's not technically social media, as some people in my Discord were pointing out, but yes, it's fine. If you need t-shirts or hats or whatever with random logos that we've compiled, if you've never actually clicked on it, there's a bunch of weird stuff in there. Go take a look. Anywho, so yeah, let's go talk some pickups. Now, the first batch of stuff is content that has very much traveled the world, and coming from me, that really says something. So a buddy of mine, shout out if he's watching, named AJ, who lives in Australia, he had moved up to Japan for the better part of like a year, and he was constantly on the lookout to see if he found anything he thought I would need. And because I go to Japan enough, I never really took him up on that much, but one day he, I guess, found something he thought I would like, and he got it for me. He showed it to me, I thought it was cool, and it was like, oh, sweet, I'll just get that from you some other time. And that was like 2 years ago, 3 years ago even, I don't know. And I totally forgot about it. In fact, so much so that once I took another trip to Japan, I actually found this same thing completely independent of him, and I went ahead and bought it, and I just completely forgot about it. Now, what ended up, the reason it's here now is not that I met AJ anytime recently. It was that he had found a second thing I needed, which we'll talk about. He ends up buying that in Australia, and then he holds on to that. The idea being he'll send it to me at some point, which didn't happen. What eventually motivated this was that my buddy John Riggs, fellow YouTuber I'm sure a lot of you guys know, needed something from Australia, and he asked if I knew anybody who was down there who could do that, and I said, yes, actually. And I told AJ, just throw my stuff in the package when you do that. So all this stuff was shipped up to John, he held on to it, and then I told John, just hang on to it till I see you. That happened to be in Sao Paulo, Brazil, not too long ago, so he brought it with him. So if you think about it, we'll just go for it. The first thing we got here is this Crazy Taxi 3 High Roller Xbox Japanese demo. This came from Japan, made its way to Australia, was shipped to Washington State in the US, made its way down to Sao Paulo, Brazil, and then up to Chicago, Illinois, USA, where it resides. Now, I actually already have this because, again, I had forgotten all about it over the course of a couple of years. So it was like, okay, that's cool. It's nice to have a backup. I think mine is sealed and this one isn't, so that's actually kind of nice. So, you know, if I want to actually check it out, I can, or dump it, or whatever. But either way, huge shout out to AJ on that one. But if I'm frank about it, the more exciting of the items is the second one. Apologies if you hear sirens, as I sometimes have to repeat to you guys, I live centrally located between a fire department, a hospital, and a police station, so you never really know which is up. Anyway, so the second item. This is one of the holy grail of PS2 trash. So for those who do not know, the PlayStation 2, in 2009, I believe it was, faced a lawsuit, I believe it was specifically in Spain. Now, Spain, I don't know if this rule applied or what exactly caused this, but Spain actually does have this weird law that basically says that if certain media is considered abandonware, that people within Spain are allowed to publish it if they want to. This is how, for a long time, there was a True Lies Blu-ray in Spain only, but nowhere in the rest of the world. It was completely unlicensed and yet considered official within that country. You know what I'm trying to say? I don't know if that law resulted in this, but what I do know is through a lawsuit, eventually Sony lost a lawsuit. And in 2009, because of that, Sony had to get rid of a quality filter on the PlayStation 2. So the basic process with games, at least it was, and probably still is for the most part, is company makes game, they bring it to company like Sony, Microsoft, Nintendo, whatever, and they say, hey, we want to put our game on your system, and we will pay a fee, blah, blah, blah. And company has to check out the game and see if they think it will hurt their brand, and says yes or no to having the game on the system. And if the game is like complete trash, a lot of the time they're like, no, we don't want this on our system, so we're not going to allow publication. All I know is Sony lost that with the PlayStation 2 in 2009. And as a result, in Spain, you were allowed to make anything you wanted for the PlayStation 2. Anything. As long as you paid the basic publication fee, Sony was forced to put it on a disc. But because Spain is part of the European Union, every European Union country, including the UK, who was a member at the time, was allowed to publish and release it. Thus, games like this got released. It is, very infamously, Snow White and the Seven Clever Boys. Now, you might be thinking, Adam, Australia is not in Europe and certainly isn't part of the European Union. Correct, you are. So here's where I get a little mixed up. This is actually the British copy. You can see on the back the Union Jack is there, and you can actually see the Peggy logo under this sticker. The question I have to Australians in particular is, I can feel that this sticker is just placed on the case. So was this sticker put on as the official release? Like, did they, make copies of this for Australia and just, somebody in a factory put the sticker on, then they sealed it up? Or did this used game store that this was found in put that on them themselves? I have no idea how this works, if this would have been considered an import in Australia or if this would have been considered domestic. I genuinely don't know, but I would like that insight. But either way, that doesn't really matter. If I took that sticker off, it would instantly become the European, British version specifically. But yeah, so this game is infamous, mostly because of the horrific image and the very premise of it, because you messed up the title to something that's already public domain anyway. The Seven Clever Boys. And it's not even really a game, by the way. It's a series of like images that have like puzzles and other stupid stuff. All these Phoenix games, the company that made this, they were just trash. But it is kind of a holy grail amongst that set. It's usually one of the more expensive ones, usually a couple $100. But AJ found it in an Australian store for like the equivalency of like $40, if I remember correctly. And I told him, yes, like now, yes, do that. I want that. Because it's hilariously dumb and I'm never going to get cheaper than that. It's got the manual and everything. The manual's a little messed up, but it's like, really, who cares? This is just hilarious to me. So I was very happy to have it. So huge shout out to AJ for sending those my way. Okay, so yes, as I mentioned, I did go to Brazil, and I'm going to tease you guys a little bit. Like, the reason I was there, like, as awesome as the trip was, I was there for about a week and a half. I was invited as a guest to a show called RetroCon in Sao Paulo, Brazil. This is my badge and everything, and there will be a lot of videos on it, not only the pickups ones, but I did game hunting videos there, and so I will remind you, if you guys, I did a video not that long ago about game hunting in Hong Kong, and I noticed a lot of you guys like that. Well, not only do I have a ton of videos like that on my channel, like my entire travel channel is that every week. It's just adventures and doing stuff all over the place. I think you guys are going to kick out of it. Links in the description. Please subscribe. It's free. But anywho, so I'm going to have a bunch of videos going down to Brazil and checking out stuff. But just a couple, like, there was these little pamphlets for various stores down there, #1 games or Ichiban games, Pereira Retro Games, etc. But I also have a badge for a completely different show, by the way, Long Island Retro. I also went to. We got some stuff there, but just showing it was a busy month. I got around, as I tend to do. But I got a couple of sample items while I was down there, and I thought you guys might like it. This one in particular, because I think it might be the first and only time I have ever shown any PC games on this channel, ever. This was just handed to me as a sample disc. Unfortunately, the individual who gave it to me only spoke Portuguese, so my translator, shout out to Tio, basically explained that, like, they're just giving this to you, and, thank you. And I was like, okay, so I don't really know what it is exactly. It's Infinite Vania. It is a PC game. It looks like a Metroidvania, hence the name title. It is a PC release. So I don't know if this is a demo disc, a full copy. I genuinely don't know. But at the very least, it was very nice of them to do that and to support physical media, no less. So just huge shout out to them. If you want to look it up, Infinite Vania, I'm sure you can find more information about it. But yeah, very cool on their part. So thank you to those guys. And the other one, which was also, this one definitely was a demo. I even did an entire video on it. I'm going to call it the ill-fated Soviet Borgs for the Sega Genesis. So I did a video on this whole thing. Basically, the long and the short of it is, this was a game that was in development for the Sega Genesis, Dreamcast, MS-DOS, and Neo Geo. It was being funded through Indiegogo. Unfortunately, it failed to meet that goal. So I don't know if this game is ever going to materialize into its final version. And which really sucks for me, because I did the voices of all the characters in the game, so that was pretty cool. I was like kind of looking forward to that. but I don't know what's going to happen now, to tell you the truth. But at the very least, I have this. They made demo carts for the show. Not too many of them. I guess I just got one of the handful, again, because I actually worked on it in that sense. So, yeah, that was cool. But it's nice to be able to have this, like, you know, little memento from when I worked on this game. And, well, what little of it I did. But it's got an original cartridge and everything. And if I plop it in, you know, try to play it or anything, it's a character comes up and it's me in a Russian voice. Vodka time. That's me. But coming through a Genesis is just kind of childhood me is very happy with myself. But yes, hopefully this game actually gets made anyway. I don't know what their situation is going to become, but all the same, cool little memento that I got while I was down in Brazil. Okay, so that's it for that. Again, stay tuned. There will be other Brazilian pickups, including this shirt, by the way. They gave me this. They gave me a bunch of shirts. You guys will see. But that doesn't matter for right now. What does matter is we got more stuff to talk about. Now this package, this is going to get its own video as well. This came from France from a company called Retromania. Sorry, I just kind of combined those things. Oh yeah, Retromania, a company in France, contacted me and said like, hey, are you interested in this? I was like, yeah, why not? Let's talk about it. So I'm going to give you guys a quick look at it before we move on. If I can get this open here. Okay, wait, I think we got it. Maybe not. There we go. Okay. This is the Easy Flash Air. This is, as I understand it, a new flash card specifically for the Game Boy Advance. And like I said, we'll get its own. Yeah, it's definitely Game Boy Advance right there with a micro SD card slot and all that. It's just called the Easy Flash. I had actually done a video on a different flash product they sent me previously for the DS. So yeah, I'm looking forward to covering that. But just a little teaser for an upcoming video, probably this month, I would imagine. But when I get the chance, I will cover that. So huge shout out to Retromania for that. Now, I'll put a link in the description, by the way, if you want to check it out. Okay, so moving on. As I said, I went to Long Island Retro. I was a guest at that as well. Brought the Sega Pluto out there. That was nice, out in New York. And I got a couple of things. The first thing I got is just kind of a knick-knack item that was gifted to me. It wasn't even video game related, but it plays to one of my other passions. Shout out to Virtual Girl, aka Candace, who you guys would best know as someone who covers Virtual Boy. She is to the Virtual Boy what I am to the Dreamcast. Like, that's just her bread and butter. That's the thing she loves talking about. So shout out to her. One of the things she knows I like is DeLorean. So she got me a Hot Wheel DeLorean for some reason with this hideous decal of it being blue, and I don't know, but like it's not how I ever envisioned a DeLorean looking. But all the same, it's cool. I'll just add it. I am a big Back to the Future guy, so I have like a whole collection of like DeLorean related stuff. So I'm just like, all right, cool, I'll put that in there. But that's just a little side thing. I would never have intended that. But very much thank you to Candace for doing that. And then we got 3 other significant items, 2 in particular. But this first one up is just kind of a nice thing for me. So 2 things came to a head here. One, as I've told you guys in other videos, I probably am going to be moving within the next year. My house is now completed after the fire, and it's been rebuilt by insurance money. Allstate specifically did all that. So the house is like mine, and I can start doing stuff in it now. I'm just kind of taking my time doing that because I just don't have the time to do it. But that means I've got a lot of walls with no artwork on them. And so that was one element of this. The other element of this is I go to a lot of video game conventions, right? And so when you go to conventions, you get kind of used to seeing some of the same things over and over again. In my case, when I go to a video game convention, I always want to see the dealer tables that have, like, you know, retro video games, duh. But there's always those, like, booths that sell, like, homemade art or, like, you know, kitschy stuff or just whatever. I usually just kind of go past those because it doesn't really play to my interest, and that's fair enough. I'm not there for that, but other people clearly are, and that's cool. This time, there was an actual item that got my attention, and it only got my attention. I usually would have just skipped right past it, but the only reason I was even aware of its existence is I was chilling out over my booth, and this dude comes over, and he was just like, oh man, he was a huge fan of mine, and he's like, dude, you gotta see what I got. And he whips it out, and he shows it to me, and I was like, man, I would have actually bought that if I'd seen that. He's like, yeah, well, you didn't, so I got it. And I was like, yeah, that's fair. So the next day, I go back to that exact same booth, and he had a second one of the same item. And I was like, yes, I'll buy this right now. And he told me, he's like, man, I only made 2 of those, and they both sold out like immediately, so I wish I'd made more. This is just some wall art of Shenmue. It's got a clip on the back. You just kind of put up a thing on the wall, and then boom, you just hang it. In fact, like I could put it if I wanted to. I could replace the thing that's over here and put that, but I'm not going to. But yeah, this will end up in my house in some room somewhere. I'm kind of thinking of making a little Shenmue shrine, and this is like the perfect thing to stick on the wall right behind all of it, I think. But yeah, it was cool. It's also nice for like the first time ever to support one of those wall art, or wall arts and crafts tables. In all the years I've been doing cons, which is at this point about a decade, I've never done that. so that was nice. Now, we got two serious items here. These two alone justify the existence of the video, in my opinion. Both of these came from Long Island Retro, and both of them came from the exact same person. Shout out to Sega Steve, or Sega Stevern, as we sometimes call him in my Discord server. Steve is one of the most unique people I've ever met, because he is in love with the Saturn. I don't mean that he's a fan. I don't mean that he really likes it. I think he's genuinely in love with it. Like, I think they make out. You know what I'm trying to say? Like, sorry for embarrassing you, Steve. But like, every time I see Steve, he is never alone. He is always carrying Saturns everywhere. Anytime I ever see him, he just has and anybody who knows him knows exactly what I'm talking about. There's just Saturns. So like anytime I see him, and we go to a con especially, of course, if like he has Saturn stuff for sale, like the second he sells one, he just replaces it immediately. It's like Saturns get in his house and just reproduce. It's ridiculous. So he ends up going to a lot of video game conventions. In this case, he drove from Seattle, Washington to Long Island, New York. It's a 3,000-mile drive, and he did it. 3,000 plus, I would imagine, actually, because of the geography. And he does that with a truck full of Saturn stuff. He gets there, he sets up shop, and he's just purging Saturn stuff. And anytime this is not a joke, like every time one of us would be like, oh, that's a good deal on that, because he doesn't want a whole lot of money for this stuff. He basically just wants his money back on whatever he paid for it. And like as soon as he gets something, he just immediately another one comes out. He also had a big museum section set up where he's like, here's all these variants of the Sega Saturn. And you're looking at it like, man, I thought I knew my shit. But this guy, like, he has a whole bunch of different versions of the Saturn I've just never seen before. And then he's got one there. I'm like, man, I want that Saturn. That's really cool. And he's like, I have a spare. And I was like, wow. And he just pulls it out. I'm like, of course he does. This is Steve. That's how he does. And that's what I ended up picking up off of him. This may look like just a Sega Saturn. Initially, it may not look special at all. What this is actually a pretty rare version of the system that was released in Korea. South Korea, obviously. With this little red logo. It looks like the Japanese one, but with the decor of the American version. On the bottom, it has a Korean sticker. On the back, it specifically mentions it only supports 220 volts. So I actually couldn't use this here without a step-down converter. And yeah, honestly, I don't need to play the Saturn specifically off this model, but the story with it is actually kind of fascinating. So I did an entire video once on the Samsung Saturn, and the basic condensed version of that is in South Korea. There was a law that has since gone away, where in particular, Korea was not allowed to have Japanese products in it due to old World War II era hostilities. So anytime a Japanese company wanted to get into South Korea, they had to partner with a Korean company that would basically be the public face of the device. Samsung was the most obvious choice, so the Sega Saturn there was released as the Samsung Saturn. But sheer pragmatism made it unfeasible to do it that way, because most people would just import the Japanese games and import the Japanese systems because they were so much cheaper, etc. However, they eventually took a second crack at this. I'm not exactly sure how they got around that law, or if the law changed in that time. I genuinely don't know exactly the history of this version. But after that, Sega, for whatever reason, was allowed to and did proceed to release their own brand of the Sega Saturn in South Korea, which horribly failed. And this is it. This is so uncommon in South Korea that if you actually try to get one, good luck ever finding it. Most of these, the actual Sega brand ones, for whatever reason, ended up in mainland China. That's where Steve got them. He's like, yeah, in mainland China, there's like dumpster bins full of them, but getting them out of China is the hard part. He managed to find somebody who was willing to ship him a couple. He kept the better of the two for himself, logically so, and he was willing to sell me the other one. And he gave me a very nice deal on it, so I was actually very happy to have it. because it's just a really cool, strange iteration of the Sega Saturn. But yeah, I thought you guys would appreciate that. I'm sure I will do a rare variants video on it when I've done a little more homework on it and everything, and I can tell its story more completely. But yeah, I think it's just really neat. Now, that would have been my one big dumb purchase of the con, except Steve was like, hold my beer, I'm going to make this even crazier. Because he did not remember this. I think it wasn't, because the con was technically 3 days. So I think Friday I got the Saturn. And I want to say Sunday is when he's like, oh, right, I have this thing. So I think that was the sequence of events. So on that Friday, Sunday rather, we're just chatting about something, and then he goes like, oh yeah, I just remembered I had something else for you that you might want, but it's in the truck, I think. He was like, wasn't even sure. And I was like, okay. And he comes out with this giant, heavy case. Look at this thing. And he's like, yeah. And I look at it, I'm like, it's a Pelican case. Why would I want that? And he's like, oh, you don't know what it is? And I was like, not offhand, should I? And he, and I picked it up. It was heavy. He's like, go ahead and open it. So I was like, okay, I do that, just like this, and reveal. And what you reveal inside is a Dreamcast. Now, that may not seem like a big deal. It's 2 controllers, it's a mega memory card by Performance, and a Dreamcast. Whatever, who cares, right? I do. And the reason I do, this is, so for those who don't know, in the United States, in anticipation for the launch of the Sega Dreamcast in September of 1999, Sega decided to do some promo efforts. Now, which is logical, they were gearing up for a launch. They had a unique advantage that the Dreamcast had already launched in Japan in November of 1998, giving them almost an entire extra year. Meaning there was hardware that was ready to go, and they could actually have a lot more games and all that sort of stuff going on, but they wanted to get people excited about it. So in the summer of 1999, in the US, before the system ever launched, they decided to do a partnership with Hollywood Video. Now, if you don't know what Hollywood Video is, that's fine. They weren't around very long. Hollywood Video was a direct competitor to Blockbuster for only a couple of years. And if you don't know what Blockbuster is, then you were probably born in a year that starts with the number 2. 2000 babies. Anywho, so Blockbuster was its height of its popularity was the 1990s, but basically it was a rental system, a rental store where you would go in and rent movies and video games and borrow them for a couple of days before returning them. So Hollywood Video and Sega partnered for a bit in an effort to boost both of them. And in that summer of 1999, you could rent the console along with the very famous Sonic Adventure Limited Edition. That iteration of that game only exists because of this bundle. It would be packed in and you could rent the whole thing. Now, you think Sonic Adventure Limited Edition is a hard release to find, and it is. This particular iteration of the console is crazy ridiculous to find because Hollywood Video was never supposed to sell it. They were supposed to just rent it out, and then as soon as the system launched, they were essentially supposed to return them, is my understanding. This one was not. I mean, they are out there. I'm not saying it's impossible to get one, but it's very uncommon. Now, how do you know it's the Hollywood Video specific one? There's quite a few ways to tell. First, if you look at the back, you will notice the modem doesn't exist. There is no modem there. It's just plastic. Now, what it is just literally just a chunk of plastic that's molded to fit in that exact same shape. There are other iterations of the console that exist like this. Some of the early Japanese ones are like this. I think there was a Hong Kong variant that's like that. And there are other North American releases and probably European releases as well that didn't have it. So that's not the only way. But on the bottom of the sticker, or the bottom, you'll see 2 stickers. First and most obvious is the one you've seen a million times, is the big sticker. At the bottom, you'll see it's a revision 0. So people who know their Dreamcast will know that there's 3 revisions within the US. There's the 0, the 1, and the 2. The 1 is by far the most common. That was the one the majority of the Dreamcast lifespan was. The 0s are the second most common. They existed as like the pre-builds and like the first 6 months of the console's lifespan. It's the 2s that are actually the hardest. I've only ever seen one of those in my entire life, and I own it. The ones that famously can't read burn discs or whatever. And even amongst revision 2s, it's really just the very end of the revision 2 that can't play them. But anyway, so this is a revision 0, meaning its manufacture date was May 1999. Pretty early for a console that would not release until September of 1999. So that's one clue. The other is this straight up Hollywood Video rental machine sticker. hashtag, it says hashtag, although back then it would have been pound, a GM Dreamcast game deck. And then it has a serial number and everything. Now the craziest part, inside the case, there is that exact same sticker. The serial number matches and everything. So this is the original case that this thing was originally distributed in for rental purposes. And yeah, so I got both of these off of Steve with the controllers, that, and the original case. So because I already own Sonic Adventure Limited Edition, I technically now have what is, if you want to call it a North American variant of the console, this is probably the rarest North American variant of the Sega Dreamcast. I don't, at least, there's supposedly EB Games did a blue one, but I've never actually seen that confirmed anywhere. But if since nobody can confirm that, it's hard to say it ever existed. But outside of that, this would, I would have to imagine, be the rarest one, outside of like a contest prize, like the Fred Durst one or whatever. But actually, didn't the Fred Durst one do like 130? So it's I don't know. I don't know the exact numbers. Either way, this is a very bizarre, odd release. And Steve managed to pick it up super cheap somewhere, and he was like, I'll just pass it on to you because you're more, I bought it basically so you could get it. Which was, that's how you know Steve's a good guy. And I paid him back, by the way. Not only did I literally pay him back, I also picked him up some stuff in Brazil because I knew he would want it, so I, pay it forward per se. Bonus time here in PlayLoad. So I got two of these gentlemen some stuff from Brazil, so I thought we'd go ahead and show it to you. Sunshine, will you tell the people about your two items here?
Yeah, so firstly we have the Brazilian variant of Super Mario 64, which is done by Playtronic, which I heard is not like the common Nintendo.
No, Gradiente was the common one. So Playtronic also ended up doing some official Nintendo stuff, and this is it, one of them. And so you get the Brazilian rating system there and everything, so that's cool. And then, so you wanted that because for some reason you like every variant of this particular game?
Yeah, I found like the Hong Kong and the Indonesian versions, so
yeah.
I'm like, alright, I'll try to...
And I can't help but wonder why, with your name, you don't collect Super Mario Sunshine variants.
There's not as many interesting ones.
Oh, okay.
I think there's like a Korean version.
Fair enough.
Not as weird.
Alright, and then what's this?
So, yes, obviously you are aware that I have my Hall of Infamy, so, yeah, I love...
He loves racist depictions.
Yeah, and sticky plates, Mr. Shin. I don't think this was officially Atari.
Well, I mean, in Brazil it was. All right.
Quote unquote.
And then Sega Steve, what's your favorite system?
Sega Saturn.
Yes. And what was a very infamous, all Sega stuff is infamous down there. So here's what he requested. Nice copy of Sonic R for the Brazilian version.
Yeah.
Anybody?
Just because, no particular reason for it.
If you want to complain about, all right, so everybody in Europe or North America who ever complained about Sega Saturn cases, let Brazil hold your beer, because these are just like the worst. They're awful. They're just pure cardboard by Tectoy. And this one we got. Now, this one is actually special. Can you tell people why this is a special release? Riven?
Yeah, so pretty much every game released in Brazil is the US version repackaged in these awful cardboard cases and with the Portuguese manual. Riven is odd because it was never released in North America.
That is correct. It came out in Europe, though.
It did.
Yeah, so is that an NTSC version or a PAL version?
I would assume it's an NTSC version.
And then lastly, you wanted a special Tectoy controller. That's a Tectoy controller. It actually says Tectoy in the plastic on the back, so I picked that up for you. And it goes with the white version of the system, which ironically you don't have, even though out there, well, we can't see it. Those two at the bottom right there are Brazilian Saturns he owns, the Derby green and the black. You don't own the white one, but you do have the controller for it whenever you're ready. We have these two other bonus pickups. These are for Virtual Girl, aka Candace. I picked this up for her in Japan last year. She likes Pokemon stuff for some reason, and Pokemon was had a few games on the Sega Bina stuff and the Sega Pico hardware, making it the only time Nintendo put games on Sega hardware. And down in Brazil, they have this character named Monica, and they did a lot of ROM hacks with officially licensed releases. So these are like repackaged other games that came out in the Mega Drive or the Genesis, but just starring this really famous Brazilian character. This is a gift from John Hancock to Virtual Girl. And I would show you Virtual Girl here to say thank you, but once again, she didn't bother to show up.
At least not yet. Should be here, right? She's coming. Is she here, like, virtually? Come on, I can only go so far.
But I want to give a huge shout out, of course, to Steve, because he really provided the coolest stuff this month by far. Shout out to Long Island Retro for having me out for that. There's going to be a special video about that as well. And, of course, RetroCon for having me out there and all the stuff they provided. Shout out to Candace, Virtual Girl, for that. Retromania for hooking me with this. Again, there will be a video on this as well. To these dudes who hooked me up with this, and, of course, to Retro Summits, who, unfortunately, this game was not backed, but we'll see. Maybe something will change. Maybe it'll happen. As well as my buddy AJ, who hooked me up with this stuff as well. And, of course, you guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you guys do me a favor again, please like the video, comment down below, subscribe if you've never done that before, and check out all the social media stuff in the description, including Spreadshirt. It's not social media, but you can buy stuff. So that would be Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Discord, Patreon, and the travel channel as well. I appreciate the support on those platforms. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all later.